But if somehow I manage to climb to the top of the corporate ladder and take control of Thorpe Park, I'll be bulldozing it the day I get employed. In recent times, parks around the world seem to have gone on this very weird trend of removing iconic roller coasters and rides and not even telling anybody. We've had King Car, the world's tallest roller coaster, located at Six Flags Great Adventure, close. And closer to home in the UK, this has happened to rides such as the Sky Rider at Legoland Windsor, along with 3 rides and attractions at Alton Towers, those being the Blade, Flavio's Fabulous Fandango, and the Alton Towers Dungeon. Honestly, it is absolute chaos in the theme park industry at the moment, and at this point, I wouldn't be surprised if people walk into Alton Towers on its 2025 opening day only to find that half the roller coasters have been removed. But all this has got me thinking, if I was in charge of surprise roller coaster removals at UK theme parks, what roller coasters would I remove? What roller coasters aren't worthy of existence anymore? And so here I am sat making this video today. I'm going to count down the top 5 roller coasters that I would remove currently operating in the UK right now. I'm going to start with a roller coaster on this list that I think is most worthy of its continued existence, and I'm going to go all the way through to the roller coaster that I definitely think needs to be removed and has seen the test of time. Blackpool Pleasure Beach is home to so many classic wooden and steel roller coasters, but with that being said, there are a couple of coasters in its lineup that I just feel have seen the test of time now and that could be replaced with something that's so much more enjoyable. One of those is Avalanche, which has seen a lot of technical issues in recent times. It used to run 3 trains, but it hasn't run 3 trains for God knows how long. It's often only on 2 trains and sometimes only even 1 train now because one of the trains keeps having issues. However, Avalanche does still remain pretty popular with the general public, and it has some capacity at least and is a pretty enjoyable ride. You've then got Infusion, which can be unbearably rough sometimes, don't get me wrong. I feel people are too harsh on it, and sometimes I don't even find it too bad. Nevertheless, it's definitely one of the weaker coasters at the park. However, again, it is incredibly popular with the general public, and in a park that doesn't have many inversion heavy coasters at all, I don't think that they could afford to lose Infusion. Steeplechase, on the other hand, is a different story. This roller coaster is manufactured by Aerodynamics and opened in 1977. It is the only roller coaster of its type operating in the world, so it's therefore very iconic. However, the capacity on it is just absolutely awful, and due to the turns being unbanked and the fact that you sat on these horses with weird bars either side your hips, you can often smack your hip on these bars going around the corners, which can be pretty painful. Not to mention that this is also one of the more unreliable rides at Blackpool Pleasure Beach, which isn't saying a lot to be honest, because Pleasure Beach is pretty good when it comes to ride reliability. Well, at least for the rides that aren't SB&O. And so for these reasons, I just feel that this ride's time is up now, and it could be replaced with something so much more enjoyable. Now, I've said in the past that I'd really like a single rail coaster on the Grand Prix site. However, all the Pleasure Beach enthusiasts seem to be very adamant at the moment that that site is actually going to be getting a family coaster, in which case, screw you, Pleasure Beach. But if you were to remove Steeplechase, that'd leave plenty of room for another new coaster at the park. And if you're going to put a family coaster on Grand Prix, then surely you just have to put a thrill coaster on Steeplechase's site to draw people back into the park. And a single rail coaster would fit very well there too, as it's a very compact space, as it's close to Icon, the big one, and Nickelodeon Streak. But a thrilling single rail coaster with plenty of inversions would easily be able to interweave with those rides while providing some much needed thrills to Blackpool Pleasure Beach. Now, this is the part of the video where the few Alton Towers enthusiasts that are still subscribed to this channel start screaming at me in the comments, because we're heading over to that park now and there's a fair few contenders for roller coasters that I would remove here, because in all honesty, Alton Towers' lineup of coasters is pretty mediocre. And there's nothing that screams mediocrity more than Dark Forest, which is home to 2 very unreliable intermins. One of those is 13, which is pretty dull and boring as far as family coasters go, besides the indoor bit, which I'm not going to spoil for the 1 in a trillion people who haven't rode it yet. However, 13, along with Spinball Wizard and Wicker Man, make up a very small selection of transitional roller coasters that can act as a transition between the junior coasters, those being Runaway Mine Train and Octonauts, to the numerous thrill roller coasters that Alton Towers has on offer. even though they do actually advertise 13 as a thrill coaster for some reason, which I've never quite understood. That area is obviously home to another roller coaster though, that being Rita, which is a family thrill coaster, I guess you could say, because it's one of the tamer thrill coasters at Alton Towers. And don't get me wrong, that ride has an amazing launch, but after that it just doesn't do anything. Not to mention that hydraulic launch coasters cost a ton of money to maintain, and it's quite a well-known fact at the moment that Merlin don't have a ton of money on their hands. So what better time than to just get rid of it? The only issue is that Rita takes up a very small space that you wouldn't exactly be able to do a lot with in terms of replacement coasters, so we probably would have to remove 13 as well here, but I have a great idea for a replacement. Now 13 is obviously a multi-dimension coaster by Intamin, however this type of ride has advanced a lot since 13 was put in back in 2010, and there's nothing that demonstrates that more than Planet Coaster 2 and the multi-dimensional coaster in that game, which has all sorts of track segments including launches, bouncing sensation, drop track thingies, seesaw sections, tilting track sections. There's so much that you could do with a coaster like this at Alton Towers. So why not replace Rita and 13 with a huge family thrill coaster? I'm talking something a little bit more intense than Gold Rush at Drayton Manor, which is also a multi-dimensional style coaster, and it could have launches, seesaw track sections, backward sections, the lot. I know you're probably all thinking, oh, but that would be such a Towers L of removing multiple rides and only replacing them with a single ride, as has been the trend at that park in recent times. However, Project Horizon is obviously in the planning as well nearby, and providing that that gets built, you would have two roller coasters, Rita and 13, being replaced by two roller coasters that are hopefully better than those, so it'd be a win. Next, we're moving over to Thorpe Park, which has an amazing lineup of coasters, arguably the best lineup of coasters that a UK park has to offer. However, there's just one coaster that stands out like an absolute sore thumb, and that is Colossus, an Intamin multi-inversion coaster located in Lost City. This ride is rough and uncomfortable. This ride has trains that are very unaccommodating. Needless to say, this ride is a complete waste of quite a big space. Now, Thorpe Park, for some reason, have a massive soft spot for this ride, probably because it was their first thrill coaster. So they gave it a massive paint job last year and a bit of a retract the year before, meaning it's probably not going to be getting removed. But if somehow I manage to climb to the top of the corporate ladder and take control of Thorpe Park, I'll be bulldozing it the day I get employed. It's seen the test of time. It doesn't even hold the world record for the most inversions on a coaster anymore, which it did when it opened. Merlin beat their own record by building a Smiler at Alton Towers, which is a much smoother and more enjoyable ride than this. And it even has a near clone now in the form of Sick at Flamingo Land. So its existence is just pointless. The question is, what would I replace it with? Well, it obviously needs to be something quirky to impress the roadmen that go to Thorpe Park. So in my eyes, there'd be nothing better than something such as a Mack Extreme spinning coaster to go here. Thorpe Park doesn't currently have a spinning coaster, so why not? I can't really think of anything better. I'm sure a lot of you were anticipating that this ride would be on this list. The ride in question is Hero at Flamingo Land, which is widely regarded as the worst coaster in the UK. On this coaster, you get put in this torture cage, some people may call it, and it's a flying coaster, so you're obviously tilted face down and you fly around the track, or a better way to put it would be you get thrown around the cage as it trundles around the track like a shopping trolley. Many people find this ride ridiculously rough and uncomfortable. I don't find it as bad as a lot of people. However, I am due to be going to Flamingo Land again this year, so who knows, my opinion might change. But regardless, it's not a very good ride. It's not very thrilling. It doesn't tend to get much of a queue on a busy day compared to a lot of the other coasters at the park. And the boarding process is low-key dangerous because you got these massive cages going through the station, and it's an omni-mover system, so they don't stop. So if you stood in the wrong place at the wrong time, you could easily get taken out by one of these things. The question is, what do we replace it with? Well, people have been wanting Flamingo Land for a long time to get a wooden coaster, which would be a great replacement. It would bring some much needed airtime to the park. However, let's take things a step up from that. Why not build an RMC hybrid at Flamingo Land. I don't see why that wouldn't work. I don't believe they have any planning restrictions that would prevent that from happening. And I just have this feeling it'd fit very well in that park. It would really put them on the map, and it'd hopefully improve the reputation as well, because for some reason Flamingo Land is pretty widely disliked by the general public. And I don't really understand why. Imagine that, back in the day, everyone wanted Thorpe Park to get the UK's first RMC hybrid coaster, and it ends up going to Flamingo Land of all places. I'm all for that. I can't believe I'm about to say this, but I'm going to say it. We're heading back over to Alton Towers in Staffordshire, because there's one ride that a lot of people seem to love, and I can't understand why. I think it is the most pointless thrill coaster to ever be built in this country. Oblivion at Alton Towers, get in the bin. What is the point of a roller coaster that goes up the lift hill, turns a corner, stops at the top for a couple of seconds, goes down a pretty good drop admittedly, and then heads straight into the brakes, which you're left sat waiting on for longer than the duration of the ride? Oblivion is just such a poor ride, and I definitely feel that the general public feel this way too, because it never seems to get a due on a busy day compared to the other thrill coasters. But for some reason, enthusiasts just constantly simp over it. Yes, it paved the way for amazing dive coasters out there, such as Baron 1898 at Efteling, which is the other dive coaster I've had the pleasure of riding. That ride is an incredible experience compared to Oblivion. It has such beautiful theming, and it has a coaster that actually does something after the drop. But that doesn't mean it should still be standing in 2025. People claim that Oblivion has the best drop in the world on a dive coaster. However, having ridden Baron 1898, I genuinely can't tell a difference, even though that drop is slightly smaller. So come on, Bianca, let's not do the Nemesis treatment here. When Oblivion comes to the end of its life, get rid. Now again, the question is, what do we replace Oblivion with? Well, with this being Alton Towers, it obviously can't be something that's too high because of the tree height restrictions they have there, but it also needs to be a thrill coaster, so we have a like-for-like replacement. Again, I feel like a Mack Extreme spinning coaster could work here. Obviously, that ride has launches, so it doesn't need a tall lift hill to get it up to its max speed, and it fits so well with the X-Sector theme. I definitely feel it'd complement that theme of Marmalisation that the Smiler next door has very, very well. Be sure to comment down below your thoughts on what roller coasters in the UK you think deserve to be removed. To hear a little bit of a more positive take on Alton Towers, because I know I have been a bit negative about it in this video, then you definitely want to go and check out this video on the right side of your screen. It is my Scarefest 2024 vlog, and for more things theme park related in the UK and beyond, make sure you click the icon in the centre of your screen to subscribe.